So fall is just around the corner, but in Sweden it's felt like it's been fall for about a month now. It's been raining constantly. Today we actually have some sun, so it's going to be perfect to do some renovation. Since fall is the normal time to do any renovations in your lawn, since we have less weed pressure and less competition for the grass, and we have more rain. So it's a perfect period to do any renovation. So in this video, I'm going to show you all the steps in my lawn renovation. I have some optional steps which I don't do, but I will include them anyways, just so you know. If you want to do them, then you can do them, but I don't do all the steps. So hey everyone, my name is Sam and I'm an average old lawn nut. So before you start your renovation, I always say you need to plan it. And by planning it, I mean you need to get all the tools you need, all the top dress you need, all the seeds you need, everything you will be using. So when you have a sunny day like today, then I can just pop out and start doing it without having to worry about getting some stuff I missed or I need to go out and buy something. And you also need to plan the timing of it. And my recommendation would be go and check when you had frost the last couple of years. So for Stockholm, for instance, we had frost mid-October last year. So that's what I'm counting from. And the full renovation to be complete, I'm counting around 35-40 days. So 35-40 days until the grass becomes established enough to actually handle the winter. So if you're wondering how late you can start, then you can just count back from the first frost you had. But again, that's just a prediction. You never know. You might have frost at the beginning of October, or you might have frost in November. You never know, but you have to go with something. So if I count backwards from mid-October and 40 days backwards, so that would mean early September, mid-September would be the latest I can start. But then again, I'm seeding with only ryegrass, and ryegrass establishes pretty fast. If you're seeding with a fescue or maybe a Kentucky bluegrass, then I would actually count 45-50 days even, just because you have cooler temperatures. So it's gonna take longer for Kentucky bluegrass to establish than normal. I mean, during nights here we have 10-11 degrees Celsius. So it is going to take a bit longer for it to establish and germinate. So I've planned everything. I have everything I need to get started. So let's just jump into step one. So step one for me is to scalp the lawn. I'm not going to scalp it completely, but I'm going to mow it really short. So if you don't mow it short, if you have taller grass, then the seeds are going to have a hard time finding their way down to the soil. And also if you're doing any kind of leveling, it's going to be harder to push around all the soil. So first step, let's mow the lawn and get it really short. All right, I'm done mowing the lawn really short. Let's have a look how it looks. So I normally cut it at around 25 millimeters. And now I think I set the allet to 15 millimeters, something like that. But this is enough. You don't have to go crazy scalping the lawn, so you end up damaging the crown of the grass. It looks like it has a disease. These are the spots after I burnt off all the weeds and the bent grass, and I had some quack grass in there. And if you haven't seen that video, check it out. And in that video I said that you shouldn't scorch the grass. So when you just warm it up and make it a matte color, this is what you get. It still dies off, but the entire plant dies off instead of just scorching the blade. And just a reminder, if you also have an electrical mower like I have, just make sure you charge the battery while you move on to step two, because we're gonna mow again and you don't want to end up with no batteries and having to wait. All right, now we move on to step two. Step two is power raking or scarifying. So when do you want to do which? So if you have a Kentucky bluegrass lawn or a creeping red fescue lawn, or any type of grass that has stolons or rhizomes, then you might want to use a scarifier to promote the spread of those grass types, because when you prune them with the scarifier, that's just going to promote the rhizomes and stolons to spread. Or if you have a lot of thatch, so I have a video on what thatch is according to me. So if you don't know what it is, just check that video and then come back here again. But if you do have a lot of thatch, then you want to scarify to get some of that thatch out. Or if your lawn is so dense that you actually want to thin it out a bit, that actually can happen. So if you, especially if you have a creeping grass type, then at some point you might have a too dense lawn, and that would also stop nutrients, water, air to come down to the roots. So that's also one of the times you want to scarify. Other than that, there's actually no reason to scarify according to me. I honestly think there's an inflation in scarifying. Every problem people seem to have, people are saying scarify it. So if you don't absolutely need to scarify, don't. I have a ryegrass, it doesn't creep or spread, and I don't have thatch issues, so I have no need of actually scarifying. So instead I'm gonna power rake the lawn, and the reason for that is that I have a lot of debris on the lawn. It's like a blanket on top of the soil, because it's been raining for about 4 weeks constantly here in Sweden. So I have some roots that have actually started to rot, and I've had a lot of red thread all around, so all that grass has died off. And then during the year, every time you cut the lawn, or if you have a robo mower that cuts the lawn, you're gonna get grass on the lawn that ends up down on the soil, and then it's just going to accumulate over the year. And if it's too much, it's not going to decompose fast enough. And if you're going to seed on top of this, then it's going to actually be hard for the seeds to actually establish through that debris. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to use the power rake. So that's step 2. Let's do the power raking. Now I have one of these electrical Scarifying power rakes, and this is just like the Greenworks or the Sunjo. I think these are awesome. I mean, they're cheap plastic, but I've had this thing for a couple of years and it's always worked perfectly fine. For the needs of a home lawn, you don't need anything more fancy than this. And the cable is a bit annoying, but as long as you move away from the cable, it's not in the way that much. I don't mind it at all. Now I'm gonna start with the collector box. Even though I have to empty it after every single pass sometimes, I still think it's worth it over than raking everything up. I hate raking, I really do. All right, let's go. All right, I've done a couple of passes. I'm not done with all of it. I just wanted to show you what I'm pulling out. All of that green stuff, they have mower cuts on them. So those are just grass clippings I'm picking up. But what I'm really after is this brown stuff. This is what's just on top of the lawn. So now I'm just gonna do the rest. So I'm about halfway through and I had an idea. I hate myself for getting these ideas all the time. Usually they end up meaning a lot more work for me, but since I am always comparing power raking to Scarifying, so my idea was I've done half of the back lawn with the power rake, so now I'm gonna change the attachment and then I'm gonna Scarify the rest, and then we can compare. I'm gonna reseed both. They both had the same treatment. So I'm not sure if it's visible on the camera, but up until this point I've power raked, and then all of this I'm gonna Scarify, and then we'll compare and see how it looks. So I'm just gonna change the attachment and then we'll Scarify the rest. All right, I'm done with the power raking and Scarifying. So let me show you the difference. So this is the power rake. It barely touched the soil, just lightly touching. And here you have where I went over with the Scarify. You can see that it actually dug into the soil. It's just that this puts a lot of stress on the lawn. So the existing grass you already have, it's gonna take longer for it to come back. And this is the pile of junk that I pulled out today, mostly from power raking. That's a lot of junk. So imagine having that on top of the soil. No wonder it's hard for the soil to actually breathe. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna give it another mow. Since when you are Scarifying or power raking, you end up pulling up some grass that have been laying down. So I just want to make sure I cut this. All right, so I gave the lawn another mow. There's a lot of stuff, so that's why I'm saying just give it another mow. Also found an apple from the apple tree. Now I'm just quickly gonna run over it with the Gardena grass and leaf collector as well. I just wanna make sure I get all the debris. Now you might think I'm overdoing it a bit, but the prep work is actually the key to a successful renovation or overseeding. So it's gonna take me 10-15 minutes longer, but I'd rather put another 10-15 minutes into the prep work than having to redo it again. So I'm just gonna get the Gardena and just run over it quickly. All right, so I just ran the Gardena grass and leaf collector. I mean, you see, I still picked up a lot of stuff. There's still probably stuff left, but now it's good enough. I'm nuts, but I'm not a complete psycho. So this is enough. All right, so that was step 2. And the next 2 steps are actually optional according to me. So if you have a compacted lawn, or if you just want to give your roots space to grow, and maybe you want to aerate your lawn, maybe do some hollow core aeration, now would be the time. So that would be step 3. But that one is optional. I'm not gonna do it. I did a full hollow core aeration just last fall, and I did some manual during the spring, so I don't really think I need to do it again. And step 4 is leveling. So if you have areas you need to level off, now would be a good time, since now you mowed everything, you took off all the debris. Since you mowed it really short, it's easier to see where you have low spots. So if you wanna do any leveling, now would be that time. But that one is also optional. I'm not gonna do any leveling. I did all my leveling last year, and especially now that I have the borders, when we do get a couple of meters of snow during winter, this will probably shift because not all of the water is going to drain as well as before the borders. So that's why I'm just going to keep it like this and then do some leveling next year instead. But if you want to do it, now is the time. So the next step for me is step 5, that's seeding. I'm just going to continue on with my ryegrass, but I'm going to use the DLF seed instead of the Barenbrug, which most of this is. It's just that the Barenbrug doesn't handle winter as well, so I just want to use a little bit more of the DLF seed, mix it in there and see how it does. Now I'm actually going to use my drop spreader for this. This is the only time I ever use this thing. It sucks for fertilizer and it sucks for pretty much everything else other than seeding, since I usually use the handheld spreader, but that way the seed just flies off everywhere. So I like this. It just drops the seeds into the grooves that you just created with the power rake or the scarifier. So this works great for that. Also, if you bought a big bag of seeds like this, try to mix it beforehand, because they drop each seed type one at a time and they don't mix it together. Now I've mixed all of this already, so I get all the cultivars mixed up. Like if you have a Kentucky Bluegrass, fescue and a rye mix, probably they fill the Kentucky Bluegrass, the fescue and the rye each separately. So they're just going to be layered on top of each other. So just try to give it a mix. All right, so I'm done with the seeding. Now I'm just gonna go over everything with the rake. Now you can use whichever side of the rake you want. You can even use a lawn leveler. It's just to make sure that the seeds aren't laying on top of the grass. So using the rake, I'm just gonna try to push everything into the grooves. So this is just a quick thing. So I forgot to say, that was step 6. Either take the rake or the garden roller and just go over everything, make sure the seed actually falls down and get good contact with the soil. Now step 7 is also an optional step. If you want to use any kind of starter fertilizer, now would be the time. I fertilized my lawn with a low nitrogen fertilizer about a week ago, and then the top dress I'm using also has fertilizer in it. Most top dress we use have fertilizer in it, so that's more than enough. To be honest, I never understood why people use starter fertilizer, but I can't say anything since I've never used it myself. Maybe it's good. So if you want to do it, then this would be the time. But I'm not gonna do it. All right, so the next step for me is step 8. It's to cover the seeds. I'm gonna use a top dress and I'm gonna use the Landsea to cover everything. Since seeds grow under the soil, it can grow on top of the soil as well, but you won't get as good germination rate and it will take longer. So seeds grow best under soil. Now you can also cover the entire area in one of those geotextile blankets. I think that's what they call landscape fabric. I have no idea, but I think you know what I mean. Those things, they let through light and water, but they keep the moisture even better and they keep it a bit warmer, so you get faster germination. Now if I would have had a smaller area, I would have done it, but this is just too much and I don't want to deal with all this fabric and cloth and everything. It just feels too much. I don't know. I mean, I have ryegrass, so it's going to grow pretty quickly anyways, but if you have Kentucky Bluegrass, that might be something to look into, because if you cover those with that, then you get way faster germination. But for me, I'm just going to use a top dress. So let's get everything in the Landsea and let's start covering this. All right, I'm done with the top dress. I put top dress on everything. It's looking awesome. Now that's covered, and it's a bit of cover against birds and stuff that will eat seeds. And I'm actually exhausted, as you might hear. It's hard work, but that's also a big point. Do take breaks in between. You could even divide it between 2 days. You can stop right before seeding and then do the seeding the next day. Now I'm nuts, so I want to do everything in one single day, of course, but it's all hard work. So just take breaks in between, otherwise you're just gonna get sick of lawn care. All right, now I'm just gonna go over everything with a garden roller. Well, I'm gonna use my Alet instead, just because I'm so tired. I don't want to fill up the garden roller with water and then use it and then empty that water out. So I'm just going to use the Alet instead and go over everything. All right, so I went over everything with my Alet. So a garden roller. Now the final step is to water this in and keeping it moist until you have germination. And I always keep saying that this is the most annoying part, because it actually is. Because if you have high temperatures, you need to water this 3, 4, 5 times a day to keep it from drying out. Now fall time, we do have a lot of rain. Hopefully it does rain a bit, even though I want the sun. I don't mind watering, so I rather take the sun. But during fall we have a lot of morning dew, and at night time it gets really humid, so you don't need to water as much as during spring, for instance. But that's the last step. But I'm also gonna add a step 10 to this and talk about when should you mow this. So I would say mow this the first time when it's around 8 centimeters. I'll put up how much inches that is on the screen. I have no idea, and I'm too exhausted to actually Google it. But I'll put it on the screen. So 8 centimeters, then you give it a first mow. And if you have taller grass that kind of grows out of control from the existing lawn, try to use a Gardena manual reel mower or something like that, a light mower. Don't put your heavy mower on there so you don't crush the new seedlings. But after that 8 centimeters, try to mow it as often as you can. I mean, mow it every other day or every day even, because the more often you mow it, the thicker it will get and the faster it will establish. So that was extra step 10, which has nothing to do with the renovation, but now you know what to do after the renovation as well. So now for me, I have ryegrass, so this I need to keep moist for about a week or 2. If you have some kind of fine fescue, then you would need to keep it moist for at least 3 weeks. And if you have Kentucky bluegrass, that's 4 weeks and above, especially during fall, since it's a bit cooler out, so the germination will be a bit slower. But as I said, I'm counting on at least 30 to 40 days for this to be complete and established. For Kentucky bluegrass, I would count at least 40, 45, even 50 days, and fescue somewhere in between. Now I'm just gonna water this in, and then I need to start picking up everything. You guys want to see how it looks over here? Now look at this mess. Now this is when you know you had a successful renovation during one day and you're exhausted. Now I just need to pick everything up, put it back where it belongs, water this in, then I'm done. Well, I'm not actually done. In 20 minutes my son's soccer practice starts and I'm one of the coaches, so I better water this in and get dressed for that as well. This day never ends. But even though it's hard work, it's so much fun, and that's why I say, if you're not a nut like me, just take breaks, enjoy your work, otherwise you're just gonna get sick of it. It's supposed to be fun. It's a hobby. All right, so hopefully this will start germinating in a week or 2, and I will just continue updating you through videos and on Instagram. So if you want to see pictures of how this develops, just follow me on Instagram. All right, so now you know, now you have a full step-by-step guide for a fall renovation. So if you want, you can just follow my steps, or you can just add stuff or take away stuff that suits your needs. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.